I sort of was taking it in as I walked into the office this morning, and the more I think about it, the more ghastly it is, you know. And I can't quite understand why it's been allowed to happen. And I also can't understand why Keir Starmer has put out a tweet saying this is the wrong decision, without seemingly willing to do anything about it.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think it is a terrible decision, and I agree with the Prime Minister. But I mean, in this country, you cannot have politicians telling the police how to police their areas. I mean, that would be crossing a line. Well,
I would say I take that point. On the other hand, however, you would have to say you don't want to interfere with the police and their operational, command. However, if their operational command is coming up with such ridiculous ideas and ridiculous sort of decisions, then surely you have to correct them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if this was something that you and I didn't agree with, and the Prime Minister was instructing the police as to what to do, then that would be wrong, wouldn't it? So,
I can't imagine what that would be, though.
It's a difficult track for the Prime Minister to walk, and I imagine that talks are going on behind the scenes at the moment. I mean, it's interesting. I don't think we've heard from the Home Secretary on this.
We haven't.
So I think this should be resolved today. I mean, I think the police will realise they've made a mistake, and Birmingham Council, I think, I think the Prime Minister has made his view absolutely clear. He can't intervene directly. He can't order the police about. But I think But
the Home Secretary can, because we've had this conversation before about the Palestinian protests, the pro-Palestinian protests, that, you know, if the police were to come to the Home Secretary and ask the Home Secretary to make a ruling, the Home Secretary is empowered to do that.
That's right, but the police have to ask. That's the catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah, but if the police want to get themselves out of shtuck, which is where they are right now, because I'm not absolutely sure what it is that they're saying is dangerous. I mean, are they saying that it's not safe for Jewish people to walk the streets of Birmingham? Is that what they're saying?
Well, no. I mean, the thing is that that Tel Aviv fans have a reputation for how should we put it? Football hooliganism.
Well, so have Millwall, but they don't get banned.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, that's why it's wrong. But I mean, that's the grounds on which the police have made their decision.
Yeah, but also the grounds which I suspect they're basing that on is there was an incident in Amsterdam some months ago at which Tel Aviv fans were said to have been committing acts of hooliganism, but in fact it wasn't that they were committing acts of hooliganism. It was the fact that there was a whole bunch of football fans, as often is the case in Holland, having sort of various punch-ups around the town because that's what they do.
Well, exactly, and that's what British football fans used to be like. And the police ought to be able to cope with that kind of situation. No, I mean that's why I think it's the wrong decision, and I hope it'll be reversed today.
And also, the situation that I think I'm right in saying the police have described is one which is about safety, right? So they're not saying, but they're not saying whose safety. I mean, whose safety are they protecting exactly?
Well, exactly. I mean, what they're saying is, we don't want to have to deal with clashes between rival groups. I mean, you'll have the Tel Aviv fans, and you'll have some anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I've got some bad news for the police in Birmingham. Because when Birmingham play Aston Villa, there's going to be some trouble as well. They're going to ban people from that.
Yeah, quite.
You know what I mean? It's a bit like I've woken up from a coma and gone, oh my goodness me, football fans fight each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do it a lot less nowadays. So it's one of the great success stories that hasn't been.
Yeah, but it still happens. I mean, I can tell you because I live not very far from Millwall's base, and every time Millwall play at home, there is a section of Millwall fans who arrange, and they do it on a very sort of efficient basis, arrange on social media for a place around the back of Surrey Quays shopping centre to have a punch up with whoever's having to come and play them.
Yeah, no, I mean
it still happens.
the police decision was the wrong decision, and the Prime Minister was right, and I hope it gets sorted out.
Yeah, let's hope so. So you're optimistic, are you, that you think that this will be done and dusted by the end of the day?
Well, I think it'd be really embarrassing if this is allowed to stand.
I mean, all I would say is that given what's happened in the past, for example, last weekend when in the aftermath of the Manchester synagogue stabbing, Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood sort of urged people not to march around in London because it might be a bit insensitive. Nobody paid any attention. They marched around in London anyway, and that was all they said, and they just let it go on.
Yeah, but I mean, again, because there are limits to what our politicians can do. Quite rightly, we don't want our politicians to be able to ban marches just like that. I mean, but I
think they have banned marches in the past, and we know there is a precedent for it. And it doesn't mean that they're banning every march. It doesn't mean that they're going to ban marches for no particular reason. But on this particular occasion, they could have, if they'd wanted to, stopped it from going ahead. But they chose not to.
No, I don't think they could. I think they had to, because
there have been bans on marches before, though. You know that.
Police, right? No, but the police have to request. The police have to say that they think there's I've forgotten what the wording is. There's a serious.
Well, they've used the word unrest in the Birmingham case, haven't they?
Right. And the police have to ask the Home Secretary to ban it, and on that occasion they didn't.
Well, the police won't ask anybody to ban a Palestinian march because they're in favour of it, aren't they? The woke police. I mean, if it was a far-right march, I'm sure they would manage to find a reason to ban it.
Well, I'm not quite sure about that, but
they banned an EDL march, I think, in 2014.
Yeah, but they don't always get it right, and
you say that again. I mean, they very rarely get it right, it seems to me. Should we talk about China? Because here's a story that you can get your teeth into. Let's play you a couple of clips. Here's Keir Starmer admitting that there was a meeting that previously had been denied. Here we go from yesterday.
Meeting in September. That did not involve the National Security Advisor discussing the evidence in any way, nor, Mr. Speaker, one further piece of evidence. The final statement in this case was submitted in August 2025. There was no further submission of evidence, one way or the other, after any discussion in September. This is a red herring, a completely scurrilous allegation made by the Leader of the Opposition.
Now, he may say that, but I'm not sure that's entirely correct because, of course, this is the same meeting that was denied by Dan Jarvis on Monday ever taking place. He's now saying, yeah, there was a meeting, but we didn't talk about China. But it was about China, but we didn't talk about it.
Well, no, but the point that he was making there was that it was after the last submission to the court. So that meeting cannot have had any bearing on the collapse of the court case. Unless it was to discuss, giving further material to the court, in which case, but I mean, he says it wasn't. So
yeah, but you're not going to just swallow that, are you? I mean, you are a journalist, John. I mean, even you must admit that he's in trouble on this, isn't he?
No, I don't.
You don't think so? All right, well, have a look at this clip. This is Kemi Badenoch asking him why Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Collins acted all of his own.
On Monday, the Security Minister repeatedly told the House that ministers did not take decisions, that it was the Deputy National Security Advisor who had full freedom. Is the government seriously saying that only one man, the Deputy National Security Advisor, had anything to do with this failure? Is he seriously saying that the Deputy did not discuss with the National Security Advisor, did not discuss with the Home Secretary or with anyone in Downing Street? Is the Prime Minister seriously saying that?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you as well, by the way, if you believe that, because, it's just not credible, is it?
It was a slightly surprising answer. I thought Kemi Badenoch did extremely well.
I thought so.
She couldn't quite sort of break through the Prime Minister's defences. Although what was really significant was immediately after saying yes to that list of questions, the Prime Minister then said, "I'll have to double check that. I'll double check this."
Right.
Which is it's unusual for the Prime Minister at the dispatch box to admit that he's not quite sure if he's...
I think it may be the first time he's ever done it. I think it's the first time he's ever done that, because when I had Kemi Badenoch sitting in this very studio, and I said to her, why does he not answer your questions when you're in Parliament and when you ask him the Prime Minister's questions? And she said, I think it's quite often because he doesn't know the answer. Actually, because I think, and I wonder if that's true, because he does seem to be somebody who is not across all of the detail, despite the fact of his legal background. He quite often comes across as a guy who doesn't know the detail.
Well, except on this case, I think he has been briefed up to the eyeballs, and
well, he has now, but he's claiming he wasn't before, which is even more ridiculous, because this is a matter of national security. Two people, and the Speaker of the House was pretty worked up about this the other day. Two individuals inside the Houses of Parliament spying for China, right? And yet you're telling me that the Prime Minister isn't informed about every single step of that prosecution?
No, but the question is whether he was involved in collapsing the prosecution.
Yes. Yeah, but surely if he's involved in what's going on with the prosecution, he must have known what was going on around the prosecution.
No, but the question is whether he interfered in the court case.
Yes.
And that is, I mean, this all sort of goes back to what we were talking about before with the police. It would be quite wrong for politicians to get involved in court cases like that and put pressure on the Crown Prosecution Service to drop the charges.
Yeah, but that's not what they did.
The Prime Minister knows that
that's
because
not what they did. He didn't
run the Crown Prosecution Service.
Yeah, but exactly right, and yet he doesn't want to cooperate with them, because what we know...
No, but the allegation that Kemi Badenoch is making is that he interfered. He put pressure on the Crown Prosecution Service.
Well, no, he didn't need to put pressure on them. He just made sure that the person who was briefing them from Downing Street, Matthew Collins, didn't give them the information they required. They didn't ask them to collapse the prosecution. All he did was not give them the information which would suggest that China was a threat. And if you don't say China's a threat, but what he did manage to do was to put something from the Labour manifesto into the message that was sent to the Crown Prosecution Service, and that was written supposedly by a completely independent and neutral civil servant. How did he end up quoting from the Labour manifesto?
Well, because, Mike, I mean, the Labour manifesto is government policy if Labour are then elected at a general election.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought they said they were going to have strong...
That's how democracy works, Mike. You put your programme to the people. If the people vote for it, they put you in government, and then you implement that policy.
Let me just remind myself of some of the things that they said in their manifesto. Like, for example, country first, party second. I think that was in there somewhere, wasn't it? And
well, he says that quite often. Yes.
And he does say that quite often, but he doesn't mean it. He also said, I think, what was the other thing?
You disagree with it?
Well, it's not a question of disagreeing with it. He clearly doesn't put the country first. He puts the party first, and he puts himself first. And then, of course, we're going to have a transparent government, won't we? But we don't seem to have had much of that either. There's plenty of things I can quote from the manifesto which are not government policy. And to say that that's the reason it made its way into a document presented by a civil servant who's meant to be neutral is ridiculous.
No, it's not. That is actually how our system works. I mean, there are all sorts of things that were in the manifesto to do with tax that the government has not stuck to, but then that's a separate argument.
Well, true. I'm going to be speaking to Dan Hodges a little bit later on in the show, and his version of what this story is completely different to yours. And I mean, I don't know whether you.
Yeah, no, he's gone a little bit. He's gone a little bit over the top, I think, on that. I'd be interested to hear what he has to say.
Well, I'll put that to him. But I mean, he basically was saying yesterday that this ridiculous farrago of lies, effectively, and I'm paraphrasing here, is completely and utterly unbelievable, and it cannot stand the scrutiny that it will inevitably have to come under, because nobody believes a word that he says. He's basically said that Labour have got no way of keeping this holding this line. I'm just trying to find it as I talk to you.
Well, he does tend to use I mean, Dan's a good friend of mine, but he does tend to use the L word, which I disapprove of in politics, and especially
even though they're all liars. I mean, I actually said
especially if they're all liars, because it's no way to conduct politics is to
well, let me read you. I found
hang on. You disagree with.
I found you the line that I want from him. The government story has changed a number of times over the China case. I suspect that within the next 24 hours, it will have been forced to admit that Powell was involved in the process. The idea that Collins acted unilaterally is now so untenable. I don't believe Number 10 can hold the line.
Well, we'll see about that. I'm not sure that's right.
You differ. You don't agree with that.
No, the one thing that Keir Starmer does know about is how the Crown Prosecution Service works and how cases like this, how the government has to behave in cases like this. The Prime Minister and ministers and special advisors are not allowed to put pressure on the Crown Prosecution Service.
Yes, but that's a bit like saying you're not allowed to go over the speed limit, John. People do it. You think the government doesn't interfere? I mean, you'd have to be a man that I could sell, as I say, swampland in Florida to if that's what you really believe. Because, of course, there's a rule that says you can't do it. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think it is embarrassing for the government that this case collapsed. I'm not sure that that's what they wanted to happen.
Right.
Although, on the other hand, they don't want to upset the Chinese government.
I think that's the key, isn't it? I think that's the bottom line. They don't want to upset the Chinese government, and I think they've got it wrong. And I think understand that it's a delicate balance, and you have to do trade with them, and you have to do business with them, and you have to borrow money from them, and you have to sell things to them and buy things from them. All of that. But, they should be a bit more grown up about it.
You're sounding like a pragmatic Blairite all of a sudden, Mike. Well,
listen, I've always been pragmatic, John. You know that.
This is progress. Yeah, no, but I mean, I think that all that is right. I mean, Keir Starmer is trying to be tough with the Chinese on spying, but to maintain good relations with them, and it's sometimes a slightly tricky balance.
It's a bit like my relationship with Downing Street. I'm going to tell you a story in a minute, but carry on. Sorry.
No, but I do think we need to take one more further step back on this and ask whether this case should ever have been brought in the first place. Because I mean, one of the things we saw in Matthew Collins's witness statement is some of the things that these so-called alleged spies are accused of. Were like passing on incorrect predictions that Tom Tugendhat was going to be promoted to the cabinet, or that Jeremy Hunt was going to support his leadership bid. I mean, this is. I mean, the Chinese are obviously interested in Tom Tugendhat because he's a particularly vocal critic of China.
Well, he's one of the people I think who's been sanctioned by them, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But making wrong predictions about Tom Tugendhat's career is not what most people would call spying.
No, but that may not necessarily be what they were doing. That may just be what we found out that they were doing, but they might have been doing some other terrible things. I mean, look at the picture on the front pages of the Telegraph and the Mail today. That ghastly individual who's got nothing but his own interest at heart, nothing to do with Britain, Prince Andrew, is meeting up with a Chinese spy boss. I mean, imagine they've got no shame at all, these people. Here are pictures done with Prince Andrew. Absolutely shocking. Anyway, listen, I'm going to tell you a story about Downing Street complaining about me in a minute, and the L word that you don't like.